The Roman Empire was one of the greatest of all time. It is remembered by many as a time when gladiators fought bears and lions inside packed coliseums, a time when its powerful armies conquered all who stood in their way, when Christianity spread throughout Europe, and a time when incredible inventions such as public baths, aqueducts, and bridges were built. The Romans ruled most of the Mediterranean and beyond from 31 BC to AD 476. By AD 117, the empire had secured its greatest area spanning 3 continents, including Asia Minor, North Africa, and most of Europe. But what kinds of animals would the Romans have seen? And do these animals still exist today? In the wild, Romans would have been familiar with the Italian wolf. This animal was recently brought back from the brink of local extinction. Although not technically a subspecies, it has a distinct skull morphology and slight genetic difference. Now, there are reported to be around 3,000 individuals living throughout Italy, but their numbers dwindled to just 70 in the 1970s. Thanks to conservation efforts, they have made a comeback. During Roman times, despite being numerous, the wolves were rarely hunted. It was likely considered taboo to do so, and there are no records of them being used in the amphitheaters despite the Romans' lust for fearsome predators fighting in the arenas. Although the Romans didn't worship wolves, the animals featured strongly in their culture. According to legend, Rome's founders Romulus and Remus were raised by a she-wolf, and depictions of wolves are found in ancient artworks. Another animal that still exists today, but is very nearly locally extinct, is an isolated population of the Eurasian brown bear, called the Marsican brown bear. These bears and other Eurasian brown bears lived in Italy and beyond during Roman times. They were admired by the Romans for their display of raw power, and were hunted for use in the amphitheaters, providing entertainment for the masses. These animals were subjected to immense cruelty, and thousands were slaughtered during Roman times. Specially trained hunters would corral the bears into netted enclosures to capture them before transporting them alive to the Coliseum. Capturing these beasts took a toll on the bear populations. Whilst there were brown bears in Italy, they were also imported from elsewhere. Bears were captured from Bulgaria and Scotland, but the Marsican brown bear, native to the central Apennine Mountains of Italy, is now critically endangered. There are thought to be just 43 individuals remaining. Whilst these bears still cling to existence, another bear species was killed off entirely by the Romans. This was the Atlas bear. As the name suggests, this bear was native to the Atlas Mountains in North Africa. Their range extended from Morocco to Libya. It was thought to be stouter and thicker set than the American black bear, measured 2.7 meters or 9 feet long, and weighed up to 450 kilograms or 1,000 pounds. The relentless onslaught of the Romans brought Africa's only native bear species to the brink of extinction. A tiny population survived until modern times, but was wiped out completely by hunters in 1870. Another animal wiped out from the Atlas Mountains by the Romans was the Atlas wild ass. This was a subspecies of the African wild ass, and darker in color. It roamed the Atlas Mountains from Algeria to Morocco and Tunisia, but the population couldn't withstand the pressures of hunting, and the subspecies came to an end during ancient Rome. It was last represented in mural in 300 AD. As well as using local animals in their desire to entertain, the Romans more commonly used exotic animals, creating a real wow factor in their arenas. Animals played a huge part in their culture. They loved to watch them, engrave them on their weapons and architecture, and, of course, hunt them. With each new country they invaded, the Romans would capture some of its incredible beasts and transport them back to Italy. Once the wild animals were caught, their fate was sealed. Many would have died on the voyages over to Rome, and those that survived were slain in the arenas. Zebras and ostriches pull chariots in front of an awe-inspired crowd. Elephants were made to perform tricks and dance in the center of the ring, balance on ropes, draw with their trunks in the sand, and bow to the emperor before being slaughtered. Pompey, a general of Rome, noted how sad the audience was when the enormous elephants were killed in front of them. The Roman public was much more delighted by the fights between some of the more ferocious animals. From Africa, lions, rhinos, crocodiles, hippos, cheetahs, monkeys, and elephants were captured and made to perform in front of the crowd. Whilst tigers, leopards, panthers, and cheetahs came over from Asia, and bears from the highlands of Scotland, it was the senators' job to train the wild animals to perform and fight one another. Often they would whip or torment them to make them angry and filled with aggression just before being released into the arena. Sometimes the animals had to be chained together to make them fight one another. It wasn't just exotic animals used in the games. Locally sourced deer, goats, wild boar, and cattle were also subjected to the cruelty. The Romans' bloodlust seemed endless. To give an idea of the numbers of animals that were barbarically dispatched, there are ancient reports of 9,000 beasts being slain over a 100-day inauguration, proving their love of the brutal arena sports. One literary source explains over a 2-day festival, an arena was filled with trees and bushes to resemble a forest. Thousands of animals from ostriches, stags, and boars to gazelles, ibexes, and sheep were then released inside, and the audience was invited to come down and hunt their prey. They were allowed to take home their kills for food. The following day, 400 lions and 300 bears were used in a performance before being slaughtered. The brutality of Roman times seems barbaric nowadays, but it was the norm back then. Prisoners and enemies of the state were often thrown to the lions. Sometimes these so-called criminals were given meager weapons to fight. But even if they survived, another beast was released onto them until they succumbed. The most lowly of criminals were given no weapons and instead were thrown into the arena naked. They were consumed by lions, panthers, tigers, bears, and leopards. But the lions weren't just used to eat people. They would mouth the hands of their trainers without causing a scratch, and they would play fetch with live hares, much to the delight of the crowd. Many of these lions were the Barbary lions. They were originally considered a distinct subspecies, but genetic analysis suggests that they were Asiatic lions. Their earliest fossils show that they lived in North Africa from around 100,000 years ago. But during the Roman Empire, merely 2,000 years ago, they were hunted to near extinction. They once covered the mountains and deserts of North Africa. They feasted on Barbary stags, gazelles, and wild boars. Although the Barbary lions clung on to its existence into modern times, it continued to be persecuted, and the last known individual was hunted in 1942, with one further sighting in 1956. Another population of lions killed off by the Romans was the Asiatic lion that was found in Greece during ancient Roman rule. These were also transported to Roman amphitheaters until no more could be found. Such was their lust for killing wild animals. The Romans were responsible for causing the extinction of many species. North African elephants were hunted to extinction. Not only were they slain in amphitheaters for entertainment, but their tusks were also used to create an impaling barrier between the wild animals and the audience who sat closest to the performance. The North African elephant is thought to have been a subspecies of the African bush elephant. Its range would have covered much of North Africa and stretched down to Sudan and Eritrea. Their depictions in ancient artwork show them to be very small elephants, perhaps only 2.5 meters or 8 feet 2 inches at the shoulder. Despite being small for an elephant, they were famously used as war elephants during the time. The relentless hunting of the Romans also led to the demise of European wild horses and aurochs. Eurasian lynxes were wiped out, along with hippos from the River Nile, and great auks were in sharp decline. Although the Romans had a lasting impact on our modern-day lives, including their influence over our language, engineering, and modern style of living, they also had a long-lasting and irreversible impact on our natural world. That's all for today. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. You can also leave a comment with what you would like to see in the following videos. Thanks for watching. See you next time.